and it's Adam and myself top 3 Final Fantasy game of the series. Please keep in mind that we didn't play all 1 to 16 and it's going to be very subjective, right? There's no objectivity there at all, but we're going to try to give you pro and cons for each of our game. So we're going to start with number 3. And because I'm talking, I'm going to start with number 3. And after Adam, if you will, you can do 3 and 2, etc., etc. So my number 3 Final Fantasy, I'm not going to surprise anyone, going to fall off your chair, but I know that some will disagree. My number 3 is Final Fantasy VIII, which I know that a lot of you consider as one of the best. And I do agree, the story is great. At the time, the graphics were fantastic. There's a couple of things which makes me not number 1 for me, or even number 2, that I usually, and it's very subjective, but I hate time travel stories. For me, it doesn't work. It never works. And 𝙬𝙬𝙀𝙎 and everything, it's really well made in the game. I just can't get into it. And yet, despite that, it's still my number 3. Yes, in front of Final Fantasy 10, for instance, we get an honorable mention, but I just hate the gameplay, which is why it's not in my top. So, Adam, which one is yours?
My number 3 is going to be Final Fantasy 6. Yeah, it came out on the Super Nintendo. In America, it was Final Fantasy 3. It has one of the larger casts of the entire series. So you've got, I don't even know how many people, but there is no main character. This is probably one of the last Final Fantasies where there is no one central main character. You do have some people that are probably a little more mainline than others. For instance, Locke's probably a little more mainline than, say, Strago. But it was very open as to who you wanted to be your main party member, unlike later entries where you have a very clear central character. Yeah, and it just spanned an entire world. You actually had 2 worlds throughout it. You had the main world, and then you had the world of Ruin after the fact. So yeah, just great game all around. Lots to do, lots of side questing. It's got its secret characters, and it has a proto limit break thing going on. So that was fun. But yeah.
And arguably one of the best, if not the best bad guy of the entire franchise.
A lot of people like Kefka, yeah.
Kefka is fantastic. Way better than all the rest. My number 2, strangely, is Final Fantasy 7. And yeah, it's not my number 1. Why is that? Again, because of the story being a bit too brainy for me at the time. I was still a kid at the time, so I know, give me a break. But the cast was fantastic. I really see that the time is Rocket City. That was absolutely fantastic. That's definitely the game that I finished the most. And I really love the challenge, the fact that you can finish the game and after the game you have the weapons, the bloody review weapons and emerald and extra to finish after the game. So I don't really need to argue why this is a fantastic game. And it's ahead of all the others. They still have top 1. Adam, do you have Evan in your top 3?
No, it would be really high ranked, but unfortunately, with giving what's happening with the fan base after Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and just, oh my God, the fan base is just becoming awful. And so because of that, it's now gotten to a point where I'm like, as much as I personally love the game, if I didn't interact with anybody else, it would definitely be ranked really high. But just looking at all the damage it's doing to the fan base, I'm, oh my God. Yeah, just looking at how people are interacting with each other now and how the fan base is treating itself and the back and forth and the shipping. And it's just, oh my God, like, what have we done? My number 1, it would probably be my number 1 all the way up until 2020 when Remake came out. And then after Remake came out, just, I don't know if it's, yeah, I don't know. It just, the toxicity that we're seeing in the fan base right now is just, you can't go online without somebody just attacking you for any opinion you have on it. If you're like, oh yeah, Tifa's great, just, oh my God, you get all the Aerith fans on you. Same thing if you go with Aerith, you get all the Tifa fans on you. So my number 2 is going to be Final Fantasy Tactics, which it's not a main number, but it's really good. And it's probably the Final Fantasy that I've played the most times, probably even more than 7. No, definitely more than 7. But yeah, Final Fantasy Tactics is a fantastic game, really solid. I love the gameplay. I love the class system. And it was why I love SRPGs now. It's why I got into Valkyria Chronicles and why I got into Persona 5 Tactica and all those. So yeah, no, Tactics is right up there. On a personal level, in a bubble, Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy Tactics are probably the closest to my heart. But yeah, because of just looking at what's going on right now, I'm going to have to put Tactics as my number 2.
I wouldn't be able to put it in my tops because I remember I was shocked when I was a kid because it introduced something that was very rare in video game, or almost you never have this. It was permadeath, right? You have some main heroes, but your party was usually big, like in Fire Emblem or something. But if one of your character die and you don't revive him or finish the battle after 3 turns or something, your character dies. And when I was a kid and one of my main character died, 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙦, I remember, what the hell? I thought he was just knocked out. And that really shocked me when I was a kid on Game Boy. So that's why I never went back to Tactics. Even though I heard some Fire Emblems are very good, it killed it for me. I'm going to leave you the honor of going with number 1 after you finish your drink.
My number 1 is going to be Final Fantasy XIV. Because that fan base is not fractured. They are pretty unanimous in their love for the game. And yeah, it's just a great experience. It's probably one of the most friendliest MMOs. I'm sure there are plenty of people that have horror stories on there, but every time I'm on there, people are usually pretty nice in the dungeons. And yeah, and then also it does have a bit of an unfair advantage in the fact that it is an MMO. It is super long, so the story gets to be epic and sprawling, and you get to have whole casts of characters, and also the music kind of cheats because it borrows music from almost every other game in the franchise. So it gets to be like a highlight reel of the music. So yeah, for me, Final Fantasy XIV is probably my number 1 Final Fantasy. Yeah.
And because it's an MMO, I didn't think about it, strangely. But it counts because, look, 11 was an MMO and it didn't really take off as much as 14 did. So no, very good choice. For me, that would be Final Fantasy IX, because at the time, I was completely taken aback by the quality of the graphics, the cinematics, and because the cast is really good and all. I really like medieval fantasy, which, of course, is much better for me than 7 and 8, which is much more futuristic than the 9th. So that's a setting which I really loved. Each time you had a summon coming, you have, I can't remember which one destroys the Tree of the Rats, or you have Atomos blowing Green Bloom, or every time you had a summon cinematics, it was like, I was a kid looking at my screen, best game ever, and it was fantastic. The only problem, which is I still keep it as number 1, but arguably the fight boss is crap. I can't even remember the final boss, to be honest. I remember the twin of Zidane or something like this, but it's not even him, the last boss.
He's not the final boss. He's like the second to last boss.
Exactly, yeah. Could have been a nice final boss, and there's another one which I can't even remember now. It's hard for me not to remember final boss, so that's a big flaw.
If I remember correctly, it's the JRPG trope of go through the whole thing and then kill God at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's very Japanese. Why did you not talk about 10? I know why I didn't, but why you didn't talk about 10?
10
or
was
13 or 12 or whatever.
So I haven't played 13. 13 was one of the ones where I had just come to Taiwan and I couldn't get an English version of it back then. So I never got a chance to play it, which is why I would always love a remaster. 10 for me, I didn't like it when I played it. I know a lot of people do like it now, but I did not like it because I think for a lot of people, because PlayStation 2 was their first console, they were very young. And so Final Fantasy X is probably what introduced them to the series. And it is a good game. But for me, because I had played previous Final Fantasies, when I got to 10, there was too much that I wanted in a Final Fantasy that wasn't there. There was no airship. There was no world map. The sphere system felt pretty limiting, whereas all the previous ones, anybody could use magic because like you learn magic from your espers in 6, or you learn from materia in 7. In 5, you had your class system. It was a pretty big departure on that. And just because of all that, I didn't enjoy it as much. It felt too linear for me. It's the same reason a lot of people did not like Final Fantasy 13. For me, it was that. If I went back and played it now and just tried to look at it as a game and not a Final Fantasy, I'd probably enjoy it a lot more than I did at the time.
Wouldn't be.
Oh, okay.
I tried, and I swear the corridor between 2 locations are just killing the game for you. Seriously, that's just not good.
Yeah, if I had started with it, I'd probably like it. I didn't start with it.
And I'm surprised you didn't talk about 16 because it must be fresh on your mind. You just finished it.
I like 16. It's not one of my top favorite Final Fantasies. It's a good game. I really enjoyed it. But it doesn't beat out Tactics or 14 or 7 or 6 for me. Yeah. or 4.
You know my personal hate about 15, so I'm not even going to talk about it.
I like 15. 15, yeah, 15's up there for me. I like 15 because I like the character dynamics. I felt it was probably one of the best games for character dynamics.
And 12 was a good game, but too generic and far too slow, which was corrected later. And also this problem of you open a chest in the first 5 hours of the game, meaning that you don't get Zodiac Spear at the end. And you're like, what the hell? That doesn't work at all. But our top 3 Final Fantasy, I really hope that you liked it. Don't forget to please tell us your top 3, why, and do it with respect, right? We are not a toxic fan base is automatically banned. Go away, we don't want you. We want to have a nice debate with you and talk about it in the comments.